we're going to make our slip pocket. So I'm using two different fabrics, one for the outside, one for the lining. You can use the same, it doesn't matter. We're going to locate those two pieces right sides together, and we're just going to pop them matching up the sides and the corners. Now if you want to, you can put lots of clips in. I tend to put just a couple, just to kind of hold them in place. Now along the bottom long edge of your pocket, you need to leave a gap. So I mean, I'm going to leave a gap of about 4 or 5 inches, something like that. You can mark the gap and then leave it, or you can just leave it. It's very much up to you. But we're going to stitch around the outside of this pocket, leaving that gap open, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. A couple of back stitches just to start me off, to secure my threads. Reduce my stitch length down a little bit, it seems a bit long. Now both of these panels have been interfaced with a woven fused interfacing. Pockets get quite a hammering, so I do think that they need to be interfaced. I know some designers say, oh, only interface the outside bit rather than, and not the inside, the lining part. I like to interface both of them, because I do think that the inside of your pocket's actually the bit that gets the most battering, and that's the bit you tend to not interface if you're going to do that. So it's not like it's a massive amount of interfacing. Anyway, so I've left that gap between there and there that I haven't stitched, and I'm now just going to trim off those corners. We've done this hundreds of times before. I'm sure anybody that's made a pocket will have sewn up, taken off the corners, and most people that have done any kind of dressmaking will have taken off the corners. We do that to reduce the bulk in the corners, otherwise we end up with kind of lumpy corners on our pocket. And we're just going to open that hole up that we left, that gap that we left, and turn our pocket right side out. I'm just pushing it out with my fingers. I will get my tool in a second, because there's only so far you can go with your fingers, especially when you've got fat fingers like me. Where's my pokey tool? There it is. I'm just going into the corners and along those seams, just the side seams, to make sure that they're all sitting nicely. Don't over poke. If you over poke, then what you end up with is curves. The sides will be curved, or the top will be curved. Which is a really unfortunate look. I know this is a pocket inside, but who's the person? The person that uses the bag, the person that might be you or your customer, is the person that sees the inside more than anybody else. And if I paid for a bag, I would want to make sure that the inside looked as good as the outside. So making sure that your pockets are nice and square, for me, is important. I'm just going to grab my iron plate. It's about -8 here today, so it's really cold. We have got the heating on, but only on low. And everything looks snowy outside. It's not snowy, it's just frost, but golly, it's chilly. So once you've got your pocket all nicely turned out, right side out, you can press that. Just roll that seam between your fingers to make sure that the lining is on the back and the main fabric is on the front. If you've used the same fabric, then it doesn't matter quite so much because it won't show, but ideally you want the lining to be behind and the main fabric to be on the front. You can turn those, oh, thank you. You can turn the edges of that pocket in where you've got that turning gap. And press that too. Need an extra pair of fingers, I think, for this. Extra set of hands, a couple of extra fingers. Be also useful, I think. So we're just going to press that fold in. And it should stay quite easily. If it doesn't, if you're using a stiffer interfacing, try using a tailor's clapper. So all I've done is warmed that up and I'm just popping the clapper on top. If you've got fabric that sort of resists being folded, then a tailor's clapper is the way forward every single time. Let's turn that off. And there we go. Look, it's sitting lovely and flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch along the top straight edge. Now that's not the edge that's got the turning gap in it. So I'm going to do 2 lines of stitching. My first line I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. My second line at 1/8 of an inch. Just removing my thread ends. It's not essential that you do 2 lines, it's just a personal preference. I like doing 2 lines, I think it looks smart. So there we have our pocket, and we're going to divide that, and you can divide that however you want, but we first need to attach it to our lining panel. So here's one of my lining panels, and what I'm going to do is mark a line that is 1 inch from one of the long edges, the bottom edge. I'm just going to fold the panel in half, the short ends together, which will find the centre for me. If I just finger press that, I should end up with a nice fold that I can still see, which I can. And I'm going to take my pocket, and again, in the same way, I'm going to just fold it in half, short ends together, so that I can find the centre. I'm just finger pressing. I'm going to lay my pocket onto that 1 inch mark, so it sits above that 1 inch mark, making sure that my centre folds are matched. So the centre fold in my lining and the centre fold in my pocket. Now you can pop a pin through if you want to, or even a couple of clips. I tend to not do so, but you're going to stitch down the side along the bottom and back up the other side using 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Oh, my foot pedals disappeared under the table. That's not great. this line of stitching will close that turning gap at the bottom of your pocket. All the way around, so our pocket is now secure. However, if we just leave that pocket like that, it's going to gape inside of our bag because it's quite a big pocket. So you can divide your pocket up however you feel most comfortable. That might be it dividing in half. You might want to add a pen pocket or something like that. I'm going to kind of do it. I'm going to do it almost in half, but I'm going to add a pen pocket because I like a pen pocket. So I'm just going to do a line, and then I'm going to put another line that's sort of an inch away from it, and that is approximately enough to be able to create a pen pocket. I'm going to stitch those lines in from the bottom of the pocket upwards towards the top. I always stitch from the bottom of the pocket towards the top, because if there are any puckers, if there's any stretching of the fabric, it doesn't pucker at the bottom of the pocket. It won't pucker at the top because the top of the pocket will move because it's not attached. It looks nicer to see than puckers in your pocket. I know it would be at the bottom, I just don't like it. So I always do the stitching to divide my pockets from the bottom towards the top. The back stitches to secure my threads. Get rid of the chalk, and now, whilst I haven't got a pen handy, you can see pencil fits very nicely in there, as would, sure I've got a pen, yes I have got a pen, as would a pen. If you do them too close together, all it does is pucker the entire lining, so I find an inch is about the approximate measurement for a pen pocket. Unless of course you've got a really fat fountain pen or something like that, in which case you probably need to make it bigger. So that's your slip pocket attached. Now I have 3 pockets. You can do 2, you can add more, you could add more pen pockets. It's very much your choice.